Thanks very much, Laska Hirlock. Glad to have the opportunity to make a few points on this and welcome the legislation and commend those who brought it forward. Notwithstanding the Water Services Acts that are in place and the safeguards they provide, I think that there is a distrust from the public about things like the ownership of Irish Water and indeed other aspects of public property. And I think anything we can do to facilitate that is certainly welcome. My colleague mentioned the cost of referendum, and indeed I was on the Oireachtas Commission at the time of the referendum for the Senate, and I recall a figure being discussed certainly at the Commission of around 13 million, I think, for the cost of a referendum. But I think the practice of recent years, and indeed a number of referenda that we have, is that we can pool certain issues together, so that if there are other reasons, I know Deputy Madigan has some proposals on divorce that she wishes to put forward, which would obviously, if the legislation passed, would require a referendum. There's this, and there may be others as well, so that you could pool them together and perhaps reduce the cost in terms of an individual in an individual perspective. The other thing is that it's not lost on me that the government, while accepting second stage, are facing the reality that have lost tonight because we were supporting the bill. And indeed, you were going to lose in terms of the amendment that was being put forward last week for Deputy Tony McLaughlin's bill on fracking. So rather than lose, you've chosen to accept at second stage, but very carefully use language that provides for the substantial amendment or potential attempt anyway by government to amend bills when they get to the pre-legislative scrutiny or committee stage. And it worries me that the spirit in bringing in pre-legislative scrutiny as a stage in the process is it one to undermine the independence of Parliament in trying to bring forward legislation or legislative change. And I think that that's wrong, because while there might be very many negatives in some people's eyes to the make-up of the current Parliament, it has served to give Parliament a little bit more of an input into the running of the country, whereas in the past, no matter who was in government, Parliament was merely subservient to the Cabinet of the day, and because of our numerical situation now, that's a little bit different. So I would hope that pre-legislative scrutiny will not be abused in a way to undermine the will of this House and the will of the sum of the parts of the 159 members of this House, rather than the will of officials and cabinet ministers of the day, because I think that would be very much a retrograde step. I support the public ownership of our water system, and while I appreciate that my colleague Deputy Cowan does not want to see the forestry and so many other aspects maybe pulled in under this, I don't think that certainly would be the intention. Although speaking personally, I feel that if you wanted to go back as far as the hydrocarbon legislation, which governs our approach to natural resources offshore and so on, I think that we could very usefully revisit that entire area in terms of how we go back, realising the value of those resources, the ownership of them in terms of us licensing them out and others taking the spoils, as it were, with additional taxation measures, the only revenue to us. I think that's something that we could revisit. And indeed, the whole issue of ownerships of things like our forestry, of things about the various other resources of the state, I certainly wouldn't rule out, again, speaking from a personal perspective. I mean, the parties will have their own positions on this, but certainly I think it's worth looking at those aspects. I think we all remember what was, I suppose, an opportunity for everybody in Ireland to benefit from the markets with the much promoted flotation of Aircom, or Telecom Air, or whatever the then name was, and we all participated, or many of us participated in it. But I think with the benefit of hindsight, we see the flaws in doing that, we see the disaster that it's become, and the fact that now, as a nation which never had a full suite of infrastructure in terms of the utilities that people are entitled to, are now effectively at the mercy of commercial entities who may or may not decide to provide infrastructure or technology or whatever it is in a particular area. And I think that is something that we need to be cognizant of. So I think that when government and when states are involved in commercial entities. There may at times be an argument to look at public-private partnerships. There may at times be an argument to look at part flotations and so on. But I think when it comes to key utilities and key natural resources, I think that the public are entitled to full and guaranteed ownership of all of those. And as a result, I very much, in a personal perspective, would be very supportive of any such measures, and I'm happy to support the bill before us here tonight. Again, as the cost issue, as rightly pointed out by my colleague Deputy Cowan, I think we could be prudent on it, and that following whatever improvements can be made to strengthen this bill and strengthen the assurance to the public that this is theirs and it can never be taken off them. I think that if a referendum is the outcome of that, I think it would be positive, and perhaps it could be pooled with some of the other legislative proposals already before the House or about to become before the House, so that we could consult the people on a number of different issues at the same time, thus reducing the cost. So, Minister, I hope, as I said, notwithstanding your kind words in support of the spirit of the bill, I hope that the pre-legislative scrutiny stage will not be abused in favour of forcing a government position, and will honour the spirit with which and the intentions of the members of this House that are supporting this today, and ensure that ultimately we will see the absolute copper faceting of the public ownership of this utility. Thank you.